Hey everybody, let's talk about visualization for runners. Okay, I've gotten a lot of questions on my TikTok account. For those that don't know, I've got a TikTok account. It's called Access to Coach. I give content there as well to complement the stuff I do here. So if you have a TikTok account or you follow TikTok, please follow me on there as well. And obviously, if you like good running talk, you like a lot of intel, training, insight, and everything else, and you want to speak with somebody with experience as a former competitive runner and the USATF coach and get all kinds of other knowledge as well. Make sure you subscribe to this channel too, please. Okay. I always like to talk running with other athletes and coaches, and I want to share as much information as I possibly can with the folks that I've known and with the folks that I don't know too. Over the last 2 decades plus, I've been a coach, and I want to share any piece of information, every piece of information with all of you. So I thank you so much for it. Okay. Now, visualization. I have a lot of folks asking me, how do I prepare for a race? I'm really nervous. I don't want to tank, right? Which is a completely normal question, especially if it's your first race. You really don't know what to expect, right? And it really depends on a couple things. I mean, how much have you run up to that point, right? And I think it's important to have a conversation with a coach. Like, this is a race. This is your first race, whether it's a mile and a half or 2 miles or 5K or whatever it might be. It's important to have an honest conversation. This is also important why I also test people at a mile after about 6 weeks of running. That way they have an idea of where their fitness is at accurately. And it allows you to set their training paces for stuff to make it easier for them to come close to longer distances and the shorter distances. So it makes it easier to set up a plan and modify a plan if you test them at a mile at some point. Okay? So just food for thought, that's what I do. Nobody said you have to do it. But I get a lot of information, a lot of intel. It helps me set the right training paces. It also helps bring the 3K down, bring the 5K down, and so on, right? So set your training paces for everything, tempos, thresholds, VO2 max, and so on. So going back to visualization. Now, there are some similarities between the 800 and the 1500. Okay, number one, in both events, you want to get out strong, get a strong start, and establish yourself in a good spot, right? Hopefully behind the leaders after the first turn if you're an outdoor track, right? So, especially in an 800, you don't have a lot of time, so you've got to be alert the whole time for this. And you've got to put yourself in a spot to be able to respond to races, respond to moves, even create your own. And keep in mind, too, if you're running an 800, we don't really know who's stepping up from the 400, who's a more speed-based runner, or who's stepping down from the mile and 2 mile, more strength-oriented runner. You might pick up some things throughout the race, but it's important to be ready for either scenario. This is one reason why I have middle distance groups and do tempo runs and thresholds to build that strength, to elevate the VO2 max so they can handle more VO2 max specific stuff, which is essentially at 3K pace and 5K pace. Then you can do stuff at mile pace while complementing it with speed development, speed endurance training, right? At the end of the day, you want to be strong and fast. And this sets you up to do both. But keep in mind, there's a couple of things with the 800, okay? Number one, the first race almost all the time, the first lap is always almost the fastest lap because it is an accumulation of lactate in the legs, and it's usually always a slowdown. With rare exceptions, the second lap is usually slower than the first, okay? Now, moving up to the 1500, you want to hit the same thing for the mile. You want to get out strong, establish position, hopefully behind the leaders. Now, you got a little bit more time. It's not condensed for time as much as 800, but with more time, allows you to make more moves and allows you to make more adjustments, but also allows you to make more mistakes tactically. So you've got to be careful with that. That's why putting yourself in a good position from the beginning, and generally when moves are made, they're usually made from the front. In most cases, not the back, okay? And that's something to keep in mind too. And with regards to leg speed, the fastest race, the fastest lap is usually the last lap of the 1500 of the mile, not the first lap. So it's kind of an opposite effect of the 800. But nevertheless, you got to have 800 speed. You got to have 3K and 5K strength if you want to run well in the mile, right? And this is why I talk about tempo runs and VO2 max and threshold training. Those types of workouts help you build the fortress of aerobic strength, okay, and aerobic threshold development to withstand stuff like this. So it makes it easy to run a mile and come back later and come back in the 4x8 or something like that, run a mile and come back tomorrow and run a 5K, whatever it might be. These workouts will help you get fitter so that you can get faster, easier. Okay. And again, but at the same token, similarities, you want to get out hard. Okay. Establish a good spot, and then you can settle in. And with the 1500 too, if you can maintain an even pace for laps 2 and maybe lap 3 while you're setting yourself up for a finishing move, at that point, you could take a lot of the kick out of the kickers, because you could have half milers moving up to the mile and then some 5K and 3K runners moving down to the mile. You just don't know what you're going to expect. So this is why having a well-balanced training program is so important, because it puts you in a position to compete with either side, somebody moving down or somebody moving up. You can handle either one, okay? And that's the point of the training. Get you there. Have you run a little bit faster each week, a little bit faster each month, and so on. So that's 1500 when I put it up against the 800. But again, at the end of the day, visualizing these races, what I just talked about, you can even communicate this to yourself, allows you to put forth a mental game plan, right? And say, okay, this is what I expect to happen. This is what I'd like to happen. But it also sets you up to make adjustments if you need to. Why? Because you've done the training that's going to allow you to do that, okay? That's an important component of this too. But this all sets you up to manifest your visualization into reality on the track or on the cross-country course or on the road, no matter where it is, right? And this is where doing the right work is important. Really. It's hopes and dreams is not going to get us to a big mile PR. And there'll be days where you're a 450 miler and you're going out there and you're running in a 430 race. If you're ready to run 430, you will. The training supports it, backs it up. If you're not, you won't. Okay? So it's just something to keep in mind. That's why I'm so methodical with the training, and make sure that you're training at the right training paces. That's why I say test yourself at a mile again, right? That way you can set training paces for everything and have you in the right zones, which makes it easier to come back and adds some leg speed work for the 800. These 1500s and 800s, or the mile and 800, they complement each other extremely well. Some of the most premier events in track and speed. And it's almost the perfect balance of aerobic and anaerobic, right? More so the 800, obviously. But being ready, either one of these is key. How can you make it easy to be ready? Visualization. Sit there before your race, half an hour before. Just close your eyes. You can lie down too. Take a deep breath and think about how you want your race to unfold. Okay? With some of these things in mind now. Okay? Because it's definitely going to help you go a long way if you're a coach or an athlete especially. So that's what I have for you right now. If you have any questions, my email address is blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com. Okay? Again, it's blackbeltrunningcoach@gmail.com. People email me on a regular basis. I respond to them as well. I'm happy to respond to yours, sir. So I will go live. I want to do a live stream soon to talk about this type of stuff. Talk about training through the fall, especially if you're not running cross country, because there's a lot of folks who are in that boat right now. I want to make sure that they're also coming into the indoor season in shape. So I thank them for that. But this is some of the stuff that's generally not talked about a lot and not broken down this way. But it's important that you know this stuff, okay? Whether you're a coach or an athlete. If you're a coach, you can communicate this type of stuff to your athletes. You can see it in real life, in person. If you watch some mile races, there's generally a kick at the end, and that's one reason why I talk about stuff like progression 150s after a tempo run, right? Because it simulates accelerating and changing gears more than once while you're already fatigued. That's exactly what the last lap of a mile is going to feel like, or a 3K or 5K, okay? So that's an important part to this. But that's what I got for you. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Send me a message here. Reach out to me in an email. Make sure you follow me on my TikTok account too. I appreciate all your help, your support. Have a great season. I will talk to you all next time.